Lauren, do we have any members of the public?
None.
I feel we are down in the polls, guys. We really need to do something. I think our Nielsen is plummeting.
Summer.
Yeah, well, we need to start like a summer thriller, a mini series.
Don't encourage craziness, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I
want
boring can be fine.
Yeah, everyone will start putting the rumor out that we're encouraging animal voting. That was something like that. We'll expand the electorate.
Horses and dogs and cats.
Or a shadow ethics committee or something.
Exactly. We're gonna promote 3 separate ethics committees, but no one gets to know who they are. Good. So in the meantime, then, do we have any comments on the minutes? Can we approve those?
Actually,
I had a quick
Okay.
question.
Go ahead, Liz.
Lauren, for the committee date, was it August 2nd or the 3rd? I thought we had changed it to August 2nd, because I think Joan may not have been able to do the 3rd.
I'll tell you in a second.
It's August 2nd. I've got it on my calendar already.
Yeah, I have Tuesday the 3rd for some reason.
Yeah, I very cleverly have both days. So because I just want to meet all the time.
Yeah, because no, I couldn't. That's the thing. I approved it when Lauren sent it, but I think we moved it to Monday because I can't do the 3rd because I'm going with my youngest to their heart doctor. So yeah, I think it is going to be this Monday the 2nd. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that work for everybody still?
Yep.
Meet on Monday.
Okay. Lauren, if you could just do the massive, I like how we do this now. We change a date. Next thing you know, a bunch of computers send out 95 pieces of notice, Thank you, Liz. You get the Eagle Eye Award for the rest of the.
I didn't even catch it. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, no,
I don't
I'm trying to be good about writing dates down because it's starting to fly. The summer's starting to fly by.
Oh, I know. I've already booked my first September appointment. It's like, it's depressing. Okay, so aside from that, can we approve the minutes?
So move.
And a second to Noreen's motion.
Second.
Bob seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. And 1 abstention. Then can we pick up where we left off?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yeah.
So we said we would talk more at this 629 meeting about the thresholds within 4.1.4.
Yep.
Do I remember it correctly that Ira didn't like the idea of a percentage?
Correct.
Okay. So we need to
He
make
said a
this.
fixed number was better.
Okay.
I mean, if everyone loves a percentage, I don't know that I didn't take that as a legal as much as,
Preference,
workability
yeah.
advice. Yeah. So can I ask, to channel my inner Selectman Wilson, if I recall correctly, Bruce's comment was, hey, I like it low because it shouldn't be easy to spend town money. And then I think, a point, Lauren, I think you made at one point in time is you can't get rid of a computer without engaging a town meeting. So those represent 2 sort of policy selections. Do we want to talk about that just in abstract and then just kind of run through these? So are we thinking they need to be higher, or do we think it offers control to have them lower? If I can parrot back what I think were the 2 sort of options. Sorry, Lauren, not to make you the higher option. You were just bringing up one point.
Well, I think we can look at each piece and maybe look and see, like, for instance, purchase of real estate. Does anybody know where you can get anything for $50,000 in town?
I'm willing to give you an easement for my electric fence.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think that that to me should go up.
That's really low.
Yeah, for me, in keeping with, I know we were having the discussion in another context. I'm in favor of raising most of these so that when we trigger the public, we're telling them it's important.
Right.
And
That's the message. Yeah.
and most of things like E, et cetera, are just not important. I mean, everything's important, but it's, you shouldn't make people try and come out for that.
Right. So purchase of real estate, I think people should come out for, right?
Yeah. So, well, why don't we start at the top and go down to the bottom? So
Okay.
I think we needed to start with, because did we do acceptance of town roads the last time? Did we do B?
Yes, we took out the language that we said
Okay.
was not necessary. We actually added in a new B. So if we're looking at
There
purchase
we are.
real estate
Yeah, I'm
is
sorry, I was
the
on the wrong
first.
sheet.
Yep.
So Joan, you are correct. Purchase of real estate. This is, we kind of need a gut number. What's our gut tell us? Actually, Lauren, you wouldn't happen to know the size of the pieces of real estate we bought in recent years, would you? I mean, I think it's like $500,000 or 300,000.
Yeah, I don't think we've bought anything that was below. I mean, Lesage was in the threes, I think.
But 250, because you still want, is that, I don't know,
I was going to say the same thing.
Can I ask a question? What triggers a town meeting with money? What's that level? It triggers for special appropriation. What triggers a town meeting versus selectmen can do it?
So a special appropriation that triggers a town meeting is $50,000 in aggregate being spent by one department, which is another thing I'm hoping you guys will take a look at, because that means that any one department that needs throughout the year $50,000 combined has to take a special appropriation at town meeting. And that to us is sometimes cumbersome as well.
Does that interfere with line item transfers?
No, line item transfers are always just routine budgetary items and they do not go to town meeting.
And there's no limit, okay.
So I would distinguish, that's a good question, Noreen, but I would think that those things are different, because in one hand, if we're doing appropriations where we can literally leak town money, so 50 may be too low, but I wouldn't want that high. But real estate's a defined thing. It doesn't happen a lot. And it's not property, it's real estate. So it's not, we're not talking cars and that kind of thing. Is there, the proposal on the table is 250, which strikes me as a pretty good number. Any thoughts?
I think that's reasonable, 250. No, I like that number a lot.
As a practical matter, I think that's going to be
Same here.
anything they buy anyway. I mean, you could
May I ask
probably make a case for 500, but there could be some oddball stuff, kayak launches and things that are.
Joe, just something you said, purchase of real estate, that does not include land, it's just buildings? I don't think that's clear.
No, I was distinguishing. No, I think this would clearly include land.
Okay.
I was distinguishing against, if it said purchase of property, that could include artwork.
Oh, got it.
You know what I mean? Like property is
real
a
property
big term.
versus real estate. Yep.
Yeah.
And one thing, just change this up a little bit, B and C, it says the Board of Selectmen upon affirmative action vote of 3 members. Shouldn't we just make it consistent, majority, we use majority instead of a vote of 3? I haven't seen that anywhere else yet, just for some consistency.
Maybe
I-
we make
I-
it, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there a chance that's statutory, because it looks odd? And the acceptance of road.
I doubt if it is, because some towns only have 3 members of the Board of Selectmen. I doubt if that's something from the state, at least the
Yeah.
number. I'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I remember that one time where we had a problem after one of the storms, Noreen, and I had to look into it briefly, and I was surprised that it was like a weird little thicket. Yeah,
What we want to accomplish here is majority of the board. to
yeah.
say
Do we really care if 3 members show up and 2 of them vote for it and 1 doesn't? I mean,
Oh, I see. I didn't think of that. All right, right.
Right. But it's
Okay.
it's acceptance of a town road. It doesn't happen that often, but once you do it, it's forever. You know, we've
Yeah.
got it. We can't
Right.
jettison it. So we're plowing it, we're maintaining it, we're
Yeah,
take
I
the
think you,
liability of it.
you want to get to the majority of the membership, not necessarily the majority that are there that night.
You know, I
Right.
had thought of that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That makes sense.
But to Noreen's point, do we want to include that in other items? Because other, you know,
Well, let's see, like acceptance of road, like I think Joe has a good point. You know, once you take it in, you can't get it back.
Mhm.
So let's look at the other things as we may want to stick a pin, so to speak, and look where any place we have majority, does it mean majority or should it be 3? Or,
Well, so purchase of real estate, I would argue, is quite similar, but it's got Board of Finance approval. So you have two boards looking at it. Where
Right.
the other one, only the road has to be
Mhm.
approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's not that the Planning and Zoning Commission is approving the town road.
right.
So this one's a two border. So from that perspective, for me, that gives me a lot of comfort. Make it 250. And unless it was a really light day on two commissions and they both went for it, and that's still a lot of elected members voting for it.
Mhm.
Okay.
I don't know if I feel strongly about it, but I think that sounds okay for that one. So just to revisit the 250 is okay. Is there any appetite for higher? Should we make it 300, or is 250 seem like enough of a leap since we went up 5 times?
I think it's enough.
Same here.
That allows for some land purchases that are not overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? If for
Yeah,
some reason
and-
something comes up.
I seem to remember at some point in time we acquired the end of a driveway or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Acceptance of real estate, same thing. 250,
You know, yeah.
okay. And that one again has Board of Finance approval,
So that's a gift, right?
right?
What would be the impact if it went higher for a gift? We're not outlaying money. It would be the thought process, there might be operating expenses or something like that?
Yeah, I mean the you know the one thing about both of these, I guess, is that you do worry about related party transactions. You
Yep.
know, but you've got two boards looking at it. I
Right.
guess I think that's a lot of diligence, but you have all the same concerns: liability, maintenance.
Yep.
You know,
Okay,
no gift is free.
that's for sure.
Let's see. So the next one is, so we're okay with the 250 then on acceptance to parallel it? Yep.
Mhm.
Disposition of town property. This way we can stop Lauren from not throwing out her computers and her desks. You can see it now. As soon as we do this, you're gonna like ditch everything. You're gonna be in there with a card table. We didn't know you were.
Absolutely, do any personal property having a fair market value of what's more than 20,000 that we have
Of less than.
No,
Yeah.
it's less than 20,000, but I can't imagine that we've got computers that are over 20 grand because I'd like to see that. That's,
Well, if we're updating all of our computers, don't we get to 20 pretty fast?
is it individual item, unused
Yeah,
item? So you
We
could,
should
you-
specify whether it's aggregate or individual items in here.
Well, how has this been used, Lauren?
Yeah, so basically we use it in an aggregate form is what happens. So like if somebody wanted to, like, for instance, one of the things I would love to get rid of and replace at town campus, for those of you who have been here, are the hideous pink chairs in all the conference rooms. And those are considered one item of greater than 20,000. So I would have to take that to a vote. to
why
get
is
rid
that
of,
considered one item from a,
because they're in the fixed assets as one purchase.
We're bought on one PO.
Mhm.
oh,
point.
God. Okay, so that,
I don't know what the threat is of throwing stuff out. You know, I mean, budgets being what they are, my experience is that town government's reasonably parsimonious.
I mean, there have been some issues. Sometimes like we got rid of the oil tanks at Academy and that meant that we couldn't heat it for a while because we didn't hook up to, so that was a little bit of a troublesome piece, but
Yeah, I don't think the dollar amount was the problem.
The dollar amount, yeah.
well,
Yeah,
the-
that might have required a different level of oversight.
there was a couple of things there, but anyway, if we say unused individual item, not like, so for instance, if it's one line item for 200 shares, then you take that line item and you divide it by the 200, and then, then I think you can keep the threshold of 20. And I think if we specify that, then that resolves the issue of the computers, and, then you're looking at something significant that
But
you've purchased.
why is that good? So we could probably come up with an instance where we buy something and now it can be disposed of in parts. Great. So you know what I'm throwing out? I'm throwing out 4 tires. Next week, a couple of doors. And that puts poor Stacy in the position of having to divide a single line item asset into things that may not be divisible as smoothly.
Well, from a purely accounting standpoint, yes, I buy 5 computers and it's one line item, but you should have an inventory that justifies that asset. It's not one asset, it's several assets, because ultimately they do break down at different point in times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at it from a perspective. I have every individual item that my company's ever bought as individual line items in an inventory. They may have been purchased at the same time, but I have the inventory list. So
do we currently assign asset numbers for each individual item?
I don't think so. It's
We-
one.
do we-
It is very dependent on how the PO is set up, how the asset tags are assigned.
and maybe we don't really want to, some things may not be worth an individual assignment, like a bunch of chairs. Though by the way, Lauren, I have a hard time believing even in aggregate, those old pink things add up to 20 grand.
You'd be surprised at what used furniture is going for. It's crazy because you have so
Evidently I
many.
would.
There's so many of them.
I mean, what about both things? What about looking at this? So what about looking at 50 grand? And what about saying, considering language to say that that like items on a single purchase order, I don't want to get that specific in the charter. Like, I'd like to be able to say, like items on a specific purchase order shall be individual items for the purpose of the section. But doesn't that
So,
feel a little?
for instance, if we go back to buying our police sports cars, right now we're leasing, but if we go back to buying, then, just with the additional items in there, you're right, $20,000 is going to be a little tough to get rid of anything. But 50 is a good number. But if we
Yeah.
bought 4 of them at the same time, we'd be several $100,000, and then we couldn't get rid of a.
Yeah, Joan, I was on the same page. Like if we went up to $50,000, that might cover most of the small stuff that town government's, handling right now. But I could see, like your example, 4 police cars to get rid of.
Maybe it's not so bad. I mean, cars are one of those things you do kind of worry about.
Mm.
You get rid of them, who buys them?
I mean, didn't we have an issue with an ambulance at one point in time that we voted on?
Yeah, and we also had
Fire
some
truck.
abandoned vehicles that had to go for a special meeting to approve getting rid of them, and they were sitting abandoned at the bulky waste site with mice living in their engines.
Well, the mice add value.
It's a condo.
Yeah, it's a habitat.
All right. So what was
I-
the thought process, Lauren, for the dollar value to go up to?
I think the 2015 charter did actually go to 50. The 2015 drafted, recommended charter did go to 50.
There you go.
But that seemed like a reasonable amount.
Yeah, my suggestion is go to 50, and when it comes to the question of how they buy stuff on POs, talk to Stacy, you know, that,
Yeah, that would be able to
I don't
be-
want to get into it as the Charter Review Commission as much as I know we all want to do accounting.
Right, it may be a nice thing that we can put to the Board of Finance for their regulations and say, don't you specify that individual items in one asset class can be considered an item under this section? Because that would cover us, right?
Or if I could, how about this? Before obsolete, what would you think of the word individual? Any individual, obsolete, damaged, or unused item of personal property. I mean, in some respects, the PO thing doesn't make any sense with that language. It's
Right.
all singular.
Right, okay, if we do individual and 50,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that should give you the capability to get rid of some stuff.
Sound okay?
It sounds fine.
All
Yeah,
right.
Now I
agree.
don't have to intentionally break all the pink chairs.
I feel we've added to your inner peace.
Thank
Right.
you, I
Okay.
appreciate it.
We've had,
If it's individual, then, I mean, because if it's 20 now as aggregate, I mean, if it's individual, is 50 too high?
I would
Well-
have to say that things are either a bunch of things that add up to 20, 30, 40, or stuff that is well over 50. You know what I mean, as far as assets go. Regular town property.
I guess I'm looking at this. We see there's a problem as it's working now because we're holding on to things that don't make sense.
Right.
I don't know the occasion where the town would get rid of stuff that it needs. I mean, I get it. Maybe there was a problem with an ambulance or if they threw out the oil tanks. I hadn't thought about that in quite some time. But you know, I don't know that the dollar amount is there. I just don't see town throwing stuff away. You have to kind of fight to throw it away.
Yeah.
So when
see,
they
what
do want to
happens
throw
is-
it away, I want to encourage them to do it.
Right. And I think one of the things that is significant is the ambulances and the fire trucks that we replace and no longer use, we usually end up selling or giving to another town that is in much greater need and can retrofit. So
Yeah.
those are the ones that actually a lot of times have a higher value, but they've already been replaced on our asset list. At least that's what I've experienced historically.
And I think historically, the firemen do an incredible job of finding the right homes.
Yeah.
for-
Yeah, they really.
do
It's
Yep.
the entire world of fire trucks in town is more expensive and a lot more thoughtful than you might ever expect. It's actually kind of nice. So, are we good with 50?
Yep, sounds
Yes,
And do we want individual or do we want to leave it alone?
individual.
Individual.
Okay.
All right, we've handled roads, property, and mice and cars. We're on a roll. Let's go to filling of all vacancies on boards and commissions.
And all,
This was kind of a,
so we're only talking about elective boards here, or are we doing both
no,
elective?
it's both.
Okay,
It's both. It's elective outside of the first selectman, as provided, it says as provided in section 6.6 and on all appointed
Commission
commissions as
boards.
provided in 8.32.
and, oh, okay, see. Elective boards and commission boards? Should
Yeah,
that be
So
commission?
well,
They should be commission and boards.
We have elected commissions?
no.
Okay,
No.
so elected boards.
Yeah, the recommendation
Baptist.
on the right side is just to strike out.
And all the appointees we make are all to commissions. There aren't any that are considered boards.
So that is something that is in another part of the charter. This idea of kind of just combining the language into one thing. We use in Madison, commission and board interchangeably.
And
honestly-
committees too.
and
sometimes.
committee.
They
Yeah,
can be-
there's really no rhyme or reason. It kind of just depends on which one sounded the best, I think, at the time with the other words.
Right,
So why isn't the sentence something along the lines of shall replace vacancies, all appointed or elected vacancies on any board, commission, committee,
Or
choir?
other entity.
Yeah,
except the office of first selectman.
except for the office of first selectman.
But isn't that kind of what 6-6 says?
So if we do 6-6, well, then what's this? I guess it's just who does it, the Board of Selectmen? So hold on. I have to open up my own
Okay.
charter to skip ahead.
That's what didn't make sense to me is what's in 6-6.
6-6.
Google and helpfully turned charter into charger, so now I know where to plug a Tesla in. Pursuant to section, the Board of Selectmen shall fill by appointment all vacancies on elected boards, commission, committee until completion.
Oh, this is actually saying the time frame.
Well, but doesn't it?
Do we need both?
And it
Yeah.
also talks about the replacement member being of the same party, which I think is critical too.
Well, should we just leave 6-6 and take the other out?
So it's the header. Again, this is one of those places where the header is what's going to come into play here. So
Mhm.
Article 6 is specific to, here are all the things you need to know about elective boards. And
Right.
Article 4 is, here are the things the Board of Selectmen are allowed to do.
Right.
So that's why it's in both places, just to differentiate that this is the power we're giving them. And then this is how it happens for elective boards.
So it sounds like then we should use the language of 6-6 and 4-4, and then just, in terms of the, take that same thing. We want to make it clear the Board of Selectmen is appointing anybody, right? We don't want to fall into a trap where they create an ad hoc group instead of a committee or do you know what I mean? Like anyone who's an elected or appointed anything and there's a vacancy, they appoint it. That's
Right.
what we're, except for
That's
the
what
first
you're
select.
saying. That's their power, but this is what they need to do for elective boards, which is very specific, that needs to, I think, stay. I don't,
Yeah, so I'm not arguing for 6-6, but I am going back to 4. Good gracious, what was it? 4-4?
4.14F,
Yeah, so that we.
now G.
So why don't we consider rewording that, right? Because what Liz, when you said isn't that the same language as 6-6, it sounds like maybe it kind of should be.
No, because this is saying,
Yeah. it's
F is
different.
saying this is the power you're getting. You're filling elective boards and commissions. 6-6 is, this is how you're going to replace the elective boards.
Yeah, no, I understand that. My concern is language, and maybe I'm misreading it. The Board of Selectmen shall fill unexpired terms for all vacancies that may exist on all elected boards and commissions.
We changed it though, to your language.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. I had too many windows open. Shall fill.
For all elective boards and vacancies that may exist except for the office of first selectman, period.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I can put back in the circular references to 6.6 and 8.3 if that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think it does, just because the entire section is confusing. So channeling my inner Bob, I'd like to make it clear for people that are actually reading because they need it.
And then the 832.
And 8.32, let's make sure that that's actually accurate, because a lot of these references in here are.
As a matter of fact, I don't
It's
see it.
not. It's
I don't see
8.3.
It's
832.
just 8.3.
Yeah.
I feel like every time this happens, we should get candy or something.
I thought it was crazy.
Well, don't rule that out, but you're
Yeah.
right on this. All right. Look at us finding confused circular references wherever they may be. Okay. Are we good with this one?
Yep.
All right. So
Yes.
let us storm on. And where are we? Our temporary advisory committees. Can I ask a question? Why 24 months?
I think we looked that up. That may be a state thing, because you don't want if you're gonna do an ad hoc committee, you want it to end.
Right.
It's for a specific reason, instead of appointing a permanent committee or commission. I think that was checked on the last time, but don't hold me to it.
And you can always go back and extend it. Selectmen can always extend the 24 months if they
Or
haven't.
they can reappoint another committee, like, so for Academy, it went from one committee that was there for 24 months, and then it shifted to another committee that had a different charge.
Yeah, I guess the recommendation under G is right now the term of the committee is not to be extended or renewed without town meeting approval. That
Yeah,
does
I
seem a
would-
little excessive.
I would take that out completely.
Yeah. All right. So are we good killing that and just leaving this in place? Should we indicate anything about extension?
Yes, so my comment here is just going to be that you should probably put in something about it being extended or renewed so that we don't continue to have a committee that should have been made permanent that is never made permanent because we've allowed an indefinite extension.
To make a recommend, okay,
So-
and
Would we want to do something that they may extend the term for 6 months?
we do initial duration not to exceed 24 months and renewal term not to exceed 12.
Mhm.
That sounds okay with me.
That's 3 years. If they, if,
Yeah, that's a
if
career.
they-
They should get a pension.
Yeah.
No, that had to be 5, remember?
So is that okay? Lauren, you see any problem with that?
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Okay. H. We really, that may look strange, but we really have no choice when it's a legal award.
No.
So I think that just has to stay put.
Yeah, yeah. Can't really do that.
Okay.
What does legal award actually mean?
Uh,
An illegal award.
You slip and fall on the beach, you sue the town for
Okay,
improper
Okay.
something or other. And that comes in a bunch
Okay.
of things.
okay.
When those show up, that's in the category of things we don't have a choice.
The
Hey,
town
for-
can also
for-
receive an award. The town could receive an award like an insurance award or I'm thinking of something with, garbage removal, remember years ago with the whole Enron thing, all that stuff.
What? Though I don't think that would appear here because this is a
No?
settlement.
Yeah, this is a settlement against the town, and basically the biggest reason why you have to leave this the way it is are the H&H claims. We're not
Yeah.
allowed to talk about them in public.
Right.
Or the state says if somebody files an heart and hypertension claim against the town, we have to pay it. We don't have a choice.
Okay.
So that's
A
the
what
HR
claim?
recommendation is to always leave that the way it is.
In
it-
hypertension, specific to
Okay.
the police force.
it's
Yeah.
a pre-existing sort of anomaly
Mhm.
where the claims come in, and I invite you to put a call into former First Selectman McPherson. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk with you about his feeling on the policy.
Or me, I can,
Yeah.
I think we were unanimous in our feelings towards certain things, but.
So disposition of town-owned real property.
I actually, one question,
please.
going back to G, are we saying that it's only one extension is allowed, or there can be multiple extensions that just can't exceed 12 months?
I think we need to say one because otherwise it's really a permanent committee.
Right.
Yeah, just one.
Exactly.
If they're going on 3 years and they're still not done, we need to make them permanent, I think, right?
Yeah, so we should specify just one extension.
Can we
just
scroll
added
up so
one.
we can see the difference between J and what we just all agreed on?
Yeah.
Town property versus
No,
real
you're right,
property.
this way. There we go.
Land.
So we can get rid of land.
Sure.
So real property is considered land.
Yeah.
And we only put $5,000 on that.
$5,000.
I'm just
What's
kinda-
that? In this
Yeah,
town?
I mean, real property, you should have it. I mean, it's land, it's buildings, it's
Right.
structure.
That should go to town meeting.
Yeah, it's just at what value?
And then you'll see here, Ira gave us a note that we may want to consider adding in language that doesn't send everything to town meeting, that sends certain dispositions of lower amounts to Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and P and Z approval versus town meeting, and then higher threshold amounts to town meeting. So
So-
that's just something to consider.
Do we want to put the real owned property at 250 and anything less would be Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance with P and Z approval? If we
Well,
had
the
250 for the,
current one has Board of Finance approval. The language has Board of Finance approval anyway right now. That's probably why this one's a little bit of overkill.
and once again, do we own anything that has real property? I don't even think we have
Yeah, I mean,
250.
We do, but Lauren, is there an example where this has been used? I mean, have we given, I didn't, wasn't there something about giving an easement years ago? No, I think we're trying to get one. Never mind.
We were
We were
trying to
trying to get the
we're trying to
easement
get one.
on the driveway, right? For near downtown. There was something there.
There might have been something to get out of the surf club, the road with the surf club.
Yeah.
That's been talked about.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't mind this one being low. Because I mean, it seems like an odd thing, and once you do, it's gone. So if someone wanted to give away a parking space, on town property, that you'd like to not have that happen.
So yeah, I could see the portion of a property being 5,000.
If this one hasn't been a problem, I don't know that I'm of a mind to fix it. Just because it seems like a strange thing. I mean, I would be amenable to, it's just, I don't know. I don't like the town giving away land. Maybe make it 10 grand. I mean,
Grand list.
and when is
So-
something, if we were doing a demo, it wouldn't be property anymore. It'd be town, bricks. It would fall under our first category.
Well, but the bricks is one thing, but you still have the property itself, the
Right.
land. So the land, let's face it, you're not gonna have any land that's gonna be $5,000 in town.
No, that's going to be easements and stuff.
Right.
Mhm.
So,
But those are the types of things that can cause real headaches later.
right, if we give away easements and stop easements and whatever.
I know the selectmen are always the brightest and most reflective and introspective people, but on the off chance some future board
And also-
might miss
also
the
the board-
significance.
Also, the Board of Finance has to give the
Right.
final approval, so it's not just one board. So
Yeah.
checks and balances.
If this hasn't been a problem, I don't know. I'm the only, I'm just being
You make a
overly
good case
cautious.
for keeping it, I think.
Yeah.
It's rare that it happens, I assume.
Yeah, I can't remember it, but maybe I'm selectively blocking it.
What was the consideration on the threshold that people were thinking of for this one? Lauren, do you remember?
No, and this is something that came up. It has not, honestly, I don't even think I've looked at this line item the whole time I've been here, but it is just something that came up during the 2015 meetings. So I'm not exactly sure what at that time was concerning to staff.
All right, I'll look and
Yeah.
see if I've got notes on it as well. So I'll make a note to, if there is anything, I'll report back. How does that sound?
That sounds that
Could this involve a land swap? If the
Sure.
town had to do a swap with the state for something?
of course we'd
fall
be
into this?
disposition of real property.
Oh,
It
I
would-
know why there was discussion on 2015. Because of the land swap with the beach hotel. That was such a big deal at the time.
Oh, yeah.
That was
But case in point, it's a big deal.
when it hits.
Yeah.
But let me look and see if there's anything else, Jay. Or what? Okay.
Are we, so barring further Walker insight, are we okay with leaving this one as is for now?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna move from mice and vehicles and to a declaration of emergency. So we're moving to seriousness. I very much agree with so just personally, so when I was a selectman, I think we had Irene and Sandy. So that was two separate states of emergency.
Yep.
Obviously the towns lived in one. Hopefully we don't get to see this again.
We
But
had a
for long
blizzard
period of time-
for one too, I think.
Oh, right.
I was in Utah though. I was not here.
Yeah,
I was getting
right.
I was getting phone calls.
We had the
Why aren't the
blizzard and the
roads
ice
clear?
storm. Yeah.
It's 3 feet of snow and it just stopped yesterday. Sorry.
So I'm personally, when these things come up, they're a mess, and I'm all in favor of the
Quickly,
language that the first selectman can call the state of emergency.
if they can't, yeah.
Because otherwise, what can you do? I mean, I know that in Irene, we couldn't meet. And there would have been 0 point in trying to do it electronically, that we had no internet.
We were able to get the quorum though, because Al and I went down and met with Fillmore because I just happened to be home that day. So I got the phone
Yeah.
call and we were
We-
able to scoot down and say yes. And then,
Yeah, we did, but it was a day or two later. So, I think that when these emergencies happen, the first selectman's going to do what the first selectman does anyway. So we might as well let them declare a
get
state
the
of
job
emergency.
done. Yep.
The only question I have in my head is, do we want to time limit a first selectman exclusive state of emergency? So for instance, you would, in a different context, I was listening to a discussion about states of emergency. It wasn't a governmental context recently. You wouldn't want to have, a first selectman declaring one-off states of emergency. Like, I feel like it's a big power. And so maybe when we go to 10.1.3, we can take a look at it and see what it is. But I feel like if the first selectman's doing it on their, ab initio, then we should treat it differently.
And maybe, as well, this is the thing now with Zoom, there shouldn't really be an issue with quorum, right? Unless we can't do that any longer. So
So
that's,
I think with Zoom and with the state putting into play the implementer bill that allows for remote only meetings from July 1st through April 30th, 2022, with the understanding that they're going to be permanently allowed after that date as well. The likelihood of this happening is very low. However, if we do have another hurricane that wipes out power,
right.
Yeah.
I can't have the board getting onto Zoom if they don't have power and internet. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like one of those
Right.
things where it might still happen in the future. I just think the likelihood going forward is lesser than it is today.
Should we say, that every effort should be made within 10 days to establish a quorum for a permanent vote or something like that? 10 days seems to me kind of 5 days. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Like the state of emergency, within 10 days, you would think, unless the Legend Hill turns into an active volcano or something happens in the middle, we get hit by a meteor, something remarkable happens that we can't figure out, then you would assume they could muster within 10 days. Does that sound reasonable?
I think so.
Can we look at 10.1.3?
Yeah, that's
Safeguards.
kind of a mess.
Yeah.
That's going to need some really lovingly updates too, because it's A, kind of a mess, and B, kind of wonky with section B on here with how it gives authority to the acting first selectman, which is important, but it also kind of skips where it gives that initial authority to the first selectman in general. So
So that needs to be
yeah,
cleaned up.
Oh yeah, this is a little messy.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, then if I could just suggest some notes here in the section we're on to make
Mhm.
sure they come through. So a limited time period from the first selectman, the requirement of every effort for immediate notification of both the the first selectman's state of emergency and actions taken between the time of the declaration and the meeting. And the last thing is to make it clear that a majority vote of the Board of Selectmen can revoke the first selectman's state of emergency. The reason I'm sensitive to it is the state of emergency power seems like a big, thing, but it gives the first selectman a lot of power, and you wouldn't want some, enterprising future politician to declare them, every Wednesday night just before the Board of Finance. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
you wouldn't want transient boards of selectmen.
Right.
And one thing that I would consider is that, maybe providing, any 3 members of the Board of Selectmen the ability to revoke this power for 6 months. That kind of, if it's truly, upon a showing of abuse or something like that, just because it's a big deal.
Right.
we've-
And I think that Peggy also mentioned that kind of if the state goes into a state of emergency, kind of an automatic state of emergency for the town.
Yeah, like to my mind, that's an easy one.
So there's a lot of times where the state doesn't go into a state of emergency, like some of the hurricanes and some of the, but if the state calls a state of emergency, the town would automatically, and that would allow an immediate, the emergency team to be able to meet immediately and get
Yeah,
through their
and
thing.
also under those circumstances, my little fear of procedural abuse is zero, right? Because there's a real emergency. The state declared one.
Right. Okay.
So this is something we'll come back to then, and we'll kind of craft better when we get to 10.1.3 and make sure that everything goes back and forth.
Makes sense. Okay. And we can, then Board of Selectmen can enact ordinances. Okay, good, yay.
Everyone's
Okay.
favorite thing. Okay.
Okay, and the miscellaneous, that looks pretty good, right?
Let's why don't everyone take a moment. Let's look at them in aggregate. Is there anything in here we particularly care about? I'm sorry, is the language at 4.1.5C a little off? Except to the extent
Contracting.
otherwise provided by ordinance, Board of Selectmen shall administer and empower to act on the following: contracting on behalf. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's fine.
Contracting on behalf of the town for any services.
No, it's fine. I needed to. I misread it backwards.
Okay,
May I ask a
And
question on C? Where does the Department of Police come into that? Do they have any rights that are a little different than the rest of the departments? I know the Board of Ed does, they're left out, but that doesn't come into play with any statutes concerning the police department?
On
For
contract,
the commission?
not that I recall.
Okay.
I seem to recall that we still, as a Board of Selectmen, contracted for everything.
Well, and I
Yes.
think here it's more professional goods and services of outside agencies. It's just, not the
Yeah.
services of any officer, board, commissioner, committee. It's the services required by in order for them to do their jobs.
To my mind,
Right.
it's really important that the Board of Selectmen be the contracting authority, and that everything's tied in with them. It's one of the few things that keeps things running smoothly. Otherwise,
Right,
it's
and-
chaos.
The specifics of all of these are within the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance policies. So depending on dollar amount thresholds, it allows the authority to be shared with the Board of Finance.
right. So, to persons agencies should be removed, right?
Yeah, so
Or
the thought
departments.
behind this is that any agencies, if we consider a board or commission or committee of the town an agency, they all have a staff liaison department head who actually does their work for them. So if we change this to department, that's who actually would A, do the work, but B, do all of the budgeting for the project of the quote agency.
1.5A and B.
Okay,
Yeah, so change agency to department.
To
and I think-
department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's fine.
We're flying.
Okay,
Okay, and we agree with,
why don't we restate this again, I guess? All right. We have it because now we're specific as to what we're doing.
Yeah.
okay, now we're into the first.
Ah, good, this should be less dull.
Okay, so we talked about this, that the town manager form of government would need an entire new charter, but the town, if someone was to hire a town manager, any one of the first selectmen could hire a quote unquote town manager as an or chief operating officer kind of deal. Does that really need to be in the charter? Because you can hire and organize how you want as first selectman, as long as it's approved by the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance from a financial standpoint, right?
Say that last part again.
Well, so for instance, we could have a chief operating officer if the first selectman wanted one, and as long as it got approved
Yes.
in the budget and, then it would be fine. So to me, the charter should say, so if we're going to go to town manager form of government, which I think we said probably not, we'd have to change the entire charter. If we just want to be able to give the first selectman the capability to set the management team how they see fit, I think that that's should be inherent in the language here. That it, because they have to, if they feel strongly about a position, they can fight for it in the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and in budget time.
Well, what was put in the charter before, it never really got finished and then somehow got taken out was, you're right, the first selectman can. So the position is they're able to hire this executive position if they want to. But remember,
But we
we
didn't,
never finished it.
yeah, but my point being is we didn't put in there that they can hire a director of finance, but we eventually got to a director of finance. They can hire a director of human resources. We eventually got to a director of resources. Do you know what I mean? Human resources. So before, there weren't necessarily full-time positions in certain areas. We didn't have certain positions that are in government right now, and we've consolidated positions. To me, that's the management of the town, and that to me, that's up to Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, budget approval side versus having something in the charter that says they can do this. Because they,
So
Is that what 7.3 was supposed to be? Because there is no
Yeah.
7.3.
Correct.
7.3 was kind of an administrative position.
well, so,
And- Yeah, go ahead,
so
sorry.
again, I want to watch the clock, but
Oh, yeah.
it strikes me that the problem is the language, maybe it's a problem. The language is that the selectmen shall generally supervise the administration of the affairs of the town. So does that mean that the first selectman cannot delegate supervisory authority? From my
a good question.
perspective, I feel like the charter should just be the heck out of this. If any first selectman wants to appoint a COO and give all the authority of the town, over to Lauren as they should, then that's up to them. And if they want to follow the JFK model of 3 separate heads, that they should be able to do that. They're elected, you know?
Right.
Why is the charter involved in this? They're up top. They can, how they run the town should be their business.
And actually, as long as you can put it in the budget, you come in November, you could certainly get it on the budget for the following May.
Good point.
Right.
So, or change the roles of existing personnel. I mean, you know,
The only reason, Joe, the only reason I'd like to see it stay, I could see at budget time, people really pushing back on a new position. And if we've identified the potential need, and the charter might help. I agree with you. We want to keep the charter clear, but anything that helps. I mean, I remember budgets going down because salt sheds being moved. I mean, some of the things that, and I remember the town planner, how long it took us to get that through. That was going down in budgets too. It was new.
Well, once again, that's something that I think the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance have got to agree on and move forward themselves if they feel it's so important.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
this is the public I'm talking about, though. This public
and-
stuff.
But they need to educate the public so that
No,
they
you're
get an
right.
understanding. So,
but also those were when times are terrible. When
Right.
times are terrible, all budgets are bad. And when times are
Right.
good, all budgets are fine. You know, I mean, it's not exactly right. So it's 5:57. So this is probably a good place for us to pick up next.
Mhm.
You know, because we're really moving into the meat of what's, I think, you know, we can do some good. If we think about this section for the first selectman, but also maybe it should be incumbent on all of us to kind of skip through these authorities between now and then and see how that fits in with our Board of Finance discussion. Is that okay?
That's good.
that sounds good.
Makes sense.
So what day is our next meeting then, Lauren? We're in
August
July,
2nd.
right?
Oh, July 13th.
Oh,
Sorry.
so-
Yes, July 13th. It's a Tuesday.
Yeah, there we go. All right, so in 2 weeks we'll pick up on this, and I would just encourage, you know, we really need to get into, from this point into the next block, kind of those bigger questions that we had as to how should we describe this position and what should it be doing. All right. Any other questions?
Happy 4th, everyone.
Yeah.
Do we have any other members of the
Wednesday.
public that would like to speak to us, Lauren?
We have one member of the public and they do not have their hand raised.
Thank you,
Excellent.
public, for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. All right,
And
everyone,
we
have a
embarrassed
good
ourselves.
4th. Can we adjourn by acclaim?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly 5:59. I'm very proud of you.